lawyer went out of her way to help 8 of her childhood friends, all victims of domestic violence. She successfully put their abusive husbands behind bars. But to her shock, the very next day, these women turned on her, accusing her of being a scam artist. It all began when the 8 women had come to her, literally on their knees, begging for help to escape their violent marriages. Moved by their desperation, the lawyer agreed. However, her firm had strict rules. Employees weren't allowed to take on pro bono cases. Each of the women had to pay a minimum legal fee of $1,400. Considering the daily torture they endured at the hands of their husbands, they all agreed to pay. They just wanted to survive. When the court date arrived, the lawyer acted as their prosecutor. Thanks to her expertise, all 8 abusive men were convicted and sentenced to prison, and the court approved their divorces. The physical and emotional harm these men had caused was undeniable evidence. At the time, the women were full of gratitude, but the very next day, everything changed. They turned on her, demanding their legal fees back. Their reason? They claimed the lawsuits had been too easy, saying, if we knew it only took an hour, we wouldn't have paid so much. They complained about how hard it was to earn money. The lawyer refused. Her firm's policy was clear: retainer fees were non-refundable. Furious, the women began to mock and insult her. They called her heartless, accused her of profiting off their pain, and painted her as a greedy lawyer. Unable to bear their hypocrisy, she shouted back. She reminded them that they were the ones who had begged her on their knees, and now they dared to turn against her. When they realized she wouldn't return the money, their attacks escalated. They started insulting her family and publicly accused her of fraud. Their shouting drew a crowd of neighbors. Taking it even further, the women threw themselves on the ground and falsely claimed the lawyer owed them money and had assaulted them. As a result, the lawyer was arrested for fraud. The stress caused her father to suffer a heart attack. Though his life was saved, his brain was severely damaged, and doctors warned he might remain in a vegetative state for the rest of his life. Racked with guilt over her father's condition, the lawyer also grew bitter toward the 8 women she once called friends. But fate soon gave her a chance at revenge. Her boss came to visit and delivered surprising news. The abusive husbands had hired new attorneys and were appealing their convictions. A recent change in the law now stated that if a plaintiff's attorney is convicted before the appeal is concluded, the original case would automatically be reopened. In other words, if the lawyer were found guilty, those 8 abusive men could walk free. Her boss hoped she'd use this opportunity to negotiate a settlement and convince the women to drop their false accusations. But the lawyer had no intention of settling. She made a shocking decision. She would accept the guilty verdict and go to prison, knowing full well it would reopen the case and send those 8 women straight back to their abusers. On the day of her trial, the women stood in front of reporters, shamelessly declaring that the lawyer had ruined their happy families and stolen their hard-earned money. Watching them lie so easily broke her heart. She remembered how helpless and desperate they had once been, and how heartless they were now. So she stood before the reporters and apologized. She admitted to every false charge, never revealing the truth. Unaware of what was coming, the women even planned to testify in court to make sure she was convicted. At trial, the lawyer stunned the court by silencing her own defense attorney. She faced the judge and said, "I plead guilty to all charges. I waive my right to appeal. Please sentence me immediately." Even the judge was confused, asking her again and again if she was sure. She didn't hesitate. In the end, she was sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud. As the women celebrated outside the courthouse, gloating and cursing her name, the lawyer felt no anger. She knew justice would come, not in the courtroom, but in the hellish lives they were about to return to. A compassionate